there's a controversy up in Quebec, my second favorite province in Canada, my first one being my home province of Ontario. But there's a controversy up there where the government of Francois Legault, he's a relatively new premier, and he's put in a bill, which is law, which states that if you work for the government of Quebec, you cannot wear any religious symbols, turban, burqa, even crosses, Jewish things, all that. You can't do that because Quebec is a secular society. Quebec is a secular nation, and they don't want a whole bunch of people, all these bunch of Muslims and Jews and all this stuff wearing all this stuff on their head. It's not a proper face of Quebec, and I agree with them. Quebec is a country which it struggles to hold on to the identity they have, and the reason for that is because they're in this continent which is either English speaking or Spanish speaking, and they're the last relic of New France. What I mean by New France is the former colony of New France, which stretched from Quebec City all the way to Louisiana. And then, of course, the French and Indian War, and the French were whooped all over the place from Louisiana to Mississippi to Kentucky to Michigan. That's why you got towns like Detroit and Illinois, Detroit. That was all New France, and the only place that the French culture and the French people really survived in North America was in this province of Quebec. So they hold on to that as best they could. It's almost like as if the French and Indian War is still going on in Quebec. And I stand with them. That's why I say Quebec is my second favorite province. I say it's my second because I don't live there. I represent Ontario. I represent where I live. No matter where I live, I want to represent it. But I love the way the French Canadians stick up for their culture. They fight for their identity. They fight for their culture. They fight for their province. It's something the English Canadian doesn't do. I mean, the English Canadian, will talk about money. He'll talk about, ways to make more money, but that's pretty much it. I mean, the English Canadian's not going to fight for what, his self. And I don't mean white or anything. I mean culture. I mean, look, I consider myself a Canadian. I'm not white. I'm an English Canadian. I'm not white in any way. It means that we have certain cultures. We have a language. We adopt the Western way of life, and the Quebecers, they also adopt the Western way of life, but they have the French language, and they have French names, and they have French beliefs, which even when you go to France, non-secularism, which means not a government which doesn't adopt to any religion. That's pretty strong, not just in Quebec, but also in mainland France. After they said, we're not going to listen to the Roman Catholic Church and all that stuff. That's old. That's not. We're going to do our own thing. We believe in secularism. So they've been doing this for a while. They tried to do it in 2014, I believe, but the Bloc Québécois, or the Parti Québécois, which is a nationalist party in Quebec, they tried doing it, but they got defeated in an election before the 2018 one, and the Liberals of Quebec went in, and of course Liberals adopt to the English Canadian mindset of not caring about your culture, not caring about your way of life, not caring about your identity, none of that stuff, but just caring about money and globalism. So that idea went out the window, and then Francois Legault came in and said, we're going to do this again, and most Quebecers support him. I support him. I think he's the greatest premier in this country, because not only is he fiscally responsible, but that's not all that's important. Identity is a very important thing. Culture is a very important thing, and when you stand up for that, you're going to get my respect any day of the week. So they have this in. A lot of people are upset about it. Justin the Tacky-headed Tarface Matt Daddy Trudeau is saying he could use his powers to get rid of Bill 21, which is something he probably can't even do. Quebec would tear him up so quickly when it comes to the Charter of Rights. You can easily say, look, we're going to use a notwithstanding clause and get rid and tell you to go to hell. That's what the notwithstanding clause is. In the Constitution, in the Charter of Rights, the province can tell the federal government to go to hell and eat dirt. So that's what Quebec could do. But there are options the federal government could do, and Justin the Techie-headed Mac Daddy Trudeau is looking at those options because he doesn't care about culture. He doesn't care about identity. We've seen that since 2015. He cares about other countries first and Canada second. We've seen how he's doing that. The Quebecers are going their own way. They're independent, and he's trying to get in their way. So that's one thing. Sorry about that. So that's one thing. But the thing that you guys have to understand is I support Bill 21. And the reason I support Bill 21 is simply this. You know, have you noticed that when it comes to Christians, you know, our standard is here. The expectations for Christians are over here. But the expectation for the Jew, or for the Muslim, or for the Hindu, or for the Chinese man, or for the Indian man, or for the Pakistani man, or for the Satanist, or the whatever, is down here. You know, nobody expects them to respect other religions. Nobody expects them to adhere to non-secularism. Nobody expects them to do any of that stuff. They can just run wild and be merry, wrap up their wives in burqa, do all sorts of things. And many of these things are not even in their religion. I mean, this Hindu rapping business, that's not a part of the Hindu religion as far as I know. So they can do what they want, but Christians, we're not allowed to say Merry Christmas in the workplace. In Canada, your boss, in America too, your boss, your employer, has the right to reprimand you if you say Merry Christmas to a customer as a Christian. Now, Christians have been in Canada for hundred and whatever year, 300 something years. How long is it? The 300 something anniversary or whatever. You know, we've been around for years and years and years. We you know, the Christians, but we are set to this standard, and these guys are set. So I'm saying, you know, if our boss, who's a private employer, is allowed to fire me, reprimand me, punish me, or whatever, or stop me from saying Merry Christmas to a customer, simple words. Merry Christmas is not anything, whatever. If he can stop me from saying that, then I agree with the government of Quebec stopping people like Muslims and Jews and Indians and whatever, even the Christians, from having religious symbols while working for the government, which, by the way, is a non-secular government. Because if you're working for the government, and Quebec, this is why I love Quebec. They think about these things. You know, working for the government means you are the face of the government in that department. Whether you're the bus driver, whether you're the garbage man, whether you're a teacher, whether you are a politician, whatever you are the face of the government in that moment. So what you're doing when you're wearing these particular things, you're saying that, hey, this is my bias, basically. This is what I'm saying. This is me. The government is this, you know, and when I work with you, or if I operate with you, I can't act as, I mean, you know, some of these religions are ridiculous. I'll just come out and say it, especially these Middle Eastern religions or these sub-Asian, you know, a lot of them, they have certain, like a Muslim woman, for example. You know, if I'm encountering a Muslim woman and she's fully with her Islamic thing and her mindset is Islam, well, then what's going to happen is that, you know, the way I operate with her is going to be in a secular way. It has to be. Because if I don't do it, she's going to get offended. So it's like my dealings with the government have been disrupted because she has a particular ideology, a religious ideology. You know, I mean, look at it. When you work for the government, you're not even allowed to wear like a political shirt or those things. You can't go into working as a bus driver or something with a conservative shirt or an NDP shirt or a liberal shirt. Why? Because that's not what the government is about. It's not about that. You'll get into trouble for that. So I see religions as political parties or ideologies. That's what I see religions as. Christianity is an ideology, just like communism is. It is. What more? What else is it? You know, that's why I can say I don't like a particular religion or I do like a particular religion. Because to me, it's an ideology. I don't care how much you believe in it. And you know, Christians put up with it all the time. People are allowed to run wild and say they hate Christians. Jesus was a pedophile. The Virgin Mary was a whore. God is a racist. People get away with saying those things all the time openly. Nobody says anything to them. Nobody even bats an eyelid. But the moment you say anything about Muhammad, you will be torn in the night. You will be treated like a dog in the street. Worse than a dog in the street. So my thing is that let's start holding other religions to the same standard that we hold Christians at. Yes, I know that, you know, many people will say that Christians have certain privilege and all this sort of thing because they're the dominant, just like people say white folk have privilege because they're this and that. But you know something? When you start, the moment the privilege goes away is when you start having one person or one group held to a higher standard. I know what you're saying when you say white folk have privilege. I know what that means. It means that white folk, you know, white folk can get away with certain things when it comes to how they're perceived in public or whatever. But then when it's institutionally put where we're going to stop that, then their privilege goes away. And by the way, I would say that it's been institutionalized so much that white folk have completely lost their privilege. I say there are many things that I've got more privilege on than white folk. Same with religions. So the thing is that Christians have lost that privilege now because they can't say Merry Christmas. They can't have Merry Christmas on public property. You can get reprimanded. You can work at Home Depot. You could work at a garbage store. You can work at a concession stand. I mean, you can work shining shoes. You can work picking up dog doo-doo. You say Merry Christmas to someone, your boss has the right to reprimand you for that, and nothing will ever happen to him. There's no court you can go to. There's no lawyer you can go to. There's no judge that will hear your case. Nobody's going to care about you. But I mean, a Muslim, you tell that Muslim man to take off his thing, he's going to take you to the judge, he'll take it to the lawyer, he'll take it to the media, he'll call Johnny Cochran on you, he'll call Al Shah, he'll call everybody on you. I mean, everybody will come down on you. He'll call Jagmeet Singh on you. And by the way, did you guys hear about what happened to Jagmeet Singh in Quebec? Some guy said, you know, I think you should take off your turban to look more like a Canadian. And, you know, everybody's getting all upset with that and stuff like that. Well, here's the thing. You know, I think that that's a bit rude. That's disrespectful. But, you know, if Jagmeet Singh thinks that Canada is a country which is completely void of, you know, stereotype. I wouldn't even say racism, but stereotypes or, you know, desires. He is dead wrong. If he thinks for a moment Canadians are going to elect him to anything to do with leadership, he's got another thing coming. I don't care how socially progressive you think Canadians are. Even the NDP people aren't voting for him. They're going for the Greens. They talk about how they're not racist and all this stuff. But these NDP people in Montreal or even in Toronto, they don't want to see this guy as Prime Minister of Canada with this thing all over his head. When you go to the G20 and stuff, you see the Prime Minister of Australia, the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Canada with this thing on. Canadians, listen, I'm telling you, I'm not saying, listen, Canadians are not as gentle as you think. He should probably thank that guy. I mean, listen. There's nothing in any Punjabi or Hindu that says he has to wear that. I know millions of Indians that don't wear that thing. But if he thinks Canadians are going to elect him with that thing on his head, he's got another thing coming. It's just the truth. So anyway, that's my thing on Bill 21. I support it. Yay and amen. And this is the